everyone, and welcome to your yoga class. My name is Jenny, and this is a restore practice. So it's going to be pretty mellow, really slowed down tempo. I'll get into some deeper stretches, a little deeper into the body, into the mind, and props are a good thing for this practice. So take some time to gather some props. Blocks are a nice little handy thing if you have one or two of these. If you don't have, yoga specific blocks, you can use hardcover books. Maybe grab two about the same size or a stack of them. This is good just to bring the ground closer, bring in a little support for the body at times. Some sort of bolster or meditation pillow cushion if you've got something like that. This is my trusty bolster. If you don't have one of these, you can also grab couch cushions, a stack of pillows. You can get a big thick blanket, kind of roll it up to create something similar to this. Other blankets are nice, maybe having a few different sizes, maybe medium and a large one. You can also grab anything that you'd like for your Shavasana. Maybe you have an eye mask. You can put on some music if that would be a nice little adventure for your senses. Just find some nice ambient music, something to kind of help you mellow out if you like to practice to music. And we will be doing part of our practice against the wall with legs up the wall. So if you can, we'll do it at the first part of class. That's how we'll start. We'll only be about half of class, maybe even less. So try to position yourself near a wall if you can. If not, you could use, you could put the legs up on a chair or, on the side or the back of a couch could work. And if that's unaccessible, you can also grab a strap, something a little bit longer. So, this is a yoga specific strap that you can see is, pretty long, a few feet. You can also use a belt, a necktie, something similar. If you have like dish towels, that might be a little too short, maybe like a longer towel or something, just if you don't have, if you're not able to use a wall for your practice. And for our little theme today that we're working with, and a lot of yoga teachers, we teach from our experience. And very often the lessons that we are sharing are for ourselves as much as for our students. So, and oftentimes, since we're all human, some of the things that we go through, if I'm going through something, there's a chance that someone else is going through something similar. So the theme that I want to work with today is being able to sit and be uncomfortable. Oftentimes, I do this too. We kind of think of in yoga, like finding what feels good and, like moving the body, doing all these good things for it. But it doesn't mean staying in your comfort zone. So while this is a nice, restore, chill practice, I don't want you to just settle in and, just like hang out in your comfort zone. Because while that's fine, that's, the comfort zone is, obviously comfortable, it's there for a reason, but no change can really happen within our comfort zone. So we kind of want to step outside of that. And, uncomfortableness can come up in a lot of different ways, and a lot of different aspects in our lives. Sometimes when we facilitate a change, that can create uncomfortableness as we kind of figure out what that change is. Sometimes the uncomfortableness is, that we're feeling is what forces the change. So there's lots of different, uncomfortableness is there for a reason. And I also want us to be aware of the difference, especially in the physical practice, of being uncomfortable in a pose and being in pain and, suffering through a pose. So while uncomfortableness is a good thing to kind of explore and to sit in, we don't want to sit in our suffering. We don't want to sit in pain. So listen to the body and recognize, okay, this is uncomfortable, but I can do this. I can still breathe. This feels safe in my body. But if it starts to get to a point where, you're feeling some pinching, burning, tearing sensations, where it feels like it's causing more harm than good, or if it's going to send you into, a not so safe mental, emotional state, if it's going to be a trigger for, any traumas or, just not good for your mental state. So just stay aware of that. So we're going to be playing with that awareness of allowing yourself to just kind of be and breathe in uncomfortableness, but not pushing it so far that, we're causing pain, injury, suffering, that sort of stuff. So let's get started. We will start with the legs up the wall. So we'll be lying on the back. Excuse me. So I'll be flipping around here, and you can scooch the booty right up against the wall if you can, or you can have it, a little bit back. Just find what feels good here. You could turn your mat or pad underneath the booty if you'd like, but we're going to start here, extending the legs up the wall and letting the wall kind of be some support here. So the legs are together, toes flexed back. Take your time to settle in. Again, you can play with the position of the booty if it's right up against the wall or if it's scooched a little further back. Now, if you're using, a couch or a chair or something that maybe doesn't have as much height, just try to support yourself so that you can kind of rest the legs. I don't want this super active, but if you need to bring a bend in the knees, if you've got a ledge that you're working with or anything like that, then, feel free to make that adjustment. But when you get settled in, just allow your low back to spread out, allow the shoulders to relax. You can bring the arms alongside the body. They could reach out into a T. They could sit in goalposts. This is just a nice way to decompress, to kind of, get a nice release through the feet, through the legs, get a little reverse circulation, give the old limbs a little bit of a break. This is also a nice way to bring some release into the low back. We're getting, letting the legs sink into the hip bones and the hip sockets, and just letting the whole back be supported here. Maybe finding a gentle opening in the chest as you let the shoulders relax down. Pay attention to the neck. We want the head pretty much in line with the shoulders so that we've got this nice lengthening spine that is supported by the ground. And as you're laying here, just start to allow your awareness to travel inward. With any home practice, there's going to be outward distractions, whether it be noises or other people. So we can allow those things to be a part of our practice, but we don't want those things to take us away from, to pull us away from our present moment experience. So if you need to acknowledge, kind of orient yourself with the external environment, but we're really focusing on bringing that awareness inward. Just starting to feel into your body. If you're noticing, how the legs are feeling, getting this reverse circulation, noticing any tension you're holding in the body, checking in with any injuries, any ailments, any stiffness or tenderness that you got going on. Starting to connect to your breath. Maybe it's just through simple observation. Maybe this is the first time all day that you're even noticing that you are breathing. One of the powers of the breath is that it happens without us even thinking about it. This nifty little brain stem area that keeps our lungs breathing even when we're not noticing it. So that's pretty powerful in and of itself. But what happens when you start to observe it? What happens when you start to notice the breath? There might be a natural lengthening of the breath as we start to return back to our belly breathing. If you ever watch a little baby breathe, they use their full belly. That's our natural state of breathing. And as we get older, stresses start to weigh down on us, as societal pressures start to kind of weigh in on us. we tend to start to shorten the breath, maybe just taking it into the chest or into the throat. So start to bring in that natural lengthening of the breath. It doesn't have to be anything extreme if you don't want it to be. It may just be a natural lengthening as you observe the breath. You can work to control the breath a little deeper by adding a length to the inhale, extending out the exhale. All just depends how you want to connect to your breath tonight. You could even add Ujjayi breathing, activating the muscles in the back of the throat. Awesome work. When you're ready, if it feels good for you, we'll just start to open up the legs to either side. Now, if you aren't working with a wall, this might be a little tricky depending on, if you're using a chair or the couch. Just try to find something similar to this. You could also, if you're using your strap, without the wall, you could have been here and then taking it open a little ways. This is going to be a little more active if you're using the strap because you do have to hold on to it to create that support. I want to give plenty of options in case you can't set up near a wall. And we're just opening up and pausing when we start to feel some resistance and just kind of letting gravity do the work here. So already this may be an uncomfortable position for us. Just to be lying on the ground in our homes sometimes can feel a little weird. As we start to open up through the legs, there might be some uncomfortableness there since that's not a natural motion that we do to have the legs this wide. No matter how wide the legs are, even if they're, just here or if they're all the way down to the ground, this isn't a natural stance that we take in our daily lives. So this in itself could be a little uncomfortable. Check in with the knees. We don't want to lock them out. Have a little softening in the knees. And if it feels better, you can even bend the knees and bring the feet on the wall. We're just allowing this opening through the hips, through the inner thighs. And don't worry how open the legs are coming. You can see mine aren't very far. I'm definitely not the most flexible yogi. And luckily for me and for the majority of us, yoga is not about flexibility. It's just meeting yourself where you are, allowing your body to be as it is, finding that edge so that we can kind of play with it, we can kind of push it. Just allowing gravity to do the work here, to bring in a little more opening. And as it starts to weigh the legs down, there might start to be a little more opening, a little more release. But just pay attention if that takes you a little deeper, a little more deep than you are wanting to go. Continue to connect to the breath. Notice the thoughts, the feelings that come up, especially if it's uncomfortable. Awesome work. We want to find little anchors to help keep us present. Sometimes when we do feel uncomfortableness, we want to try to distract ourselves. So we, let the mind wander. Sometimes we, want to turn on the TV or, take some sort of substance to kind of numb it out, to distract ourselves from it. But if we sit in that uncomfortableness, if we allow ourselves to be in it, that's where real change can happen. Again, we are choosing to stay uncomfortable, but I don't want you to choose to stay in pain. I don't want you to choose suffering. So there is that difference. Stay aware. We'll take about 5 or so more rounds of breath here and just notice where you can relax a little bit more. Where you can sink a little deeper into the sensations, move towards the uncomfortableness. Fantastic. Then when you feel ready, we'll just bring the bottoms of the feet together, keeping the knees bent and the thighs open wide, so that we're coming into a cobbler's pose with the feet up on the wall. And if you don't have a wall to use and you can negotiate something around other furniture, maybe against the couch, a chair, this might be a little more challenging with a chair. You could also, use your strap around the feet. Kind of draw the knees in if you're not able to work with the wall. We want to just continue to find that opening through the hips as the low back spreads out across the mat. This will be the last pose that we take along the wall. Some potential uncomfortableness when we work with the hips. The hips are a very common place for us to store our emotions, our pent-up energy, our stagnant energy, our traumas. So when we work with hip openers, especially holding hip openers for an extended period of time, feelings might start to arise that feel uncomfortable. You might find a release physically, mentally, emotionally. Sometimes it's a release that's expected, maybe sometimes even welcome. And sometimes not so much. I've definitely been in yoga classes where I've been in hip openers and suddenly I'm crying. I'm not sure what or why I'm crying for or about, but there was some sort of release in my body, and that resulted in tears. So we're going to be uncomfortable, be with the uncomfortable feelings, the uncomfortable sensations, as long as it still feels safe. Continue to connect to the breath. Connect to the sensations in the body. Move towards the uncomfortableness. Everything we practice on our mat, we are able to then take and apply to our lives off the mat. So if we can learn to mindfully navigate uncomfortable situations, to stay present without distracting ourselves, without trying to run away or hide away, then we're able to more mindfully navigate our lives. We're able to find the lessons in that uncomfortableness and find those opportunities to learn and to grow. Awesome work. And as you start to feel ready, we'll bring the knees together. And if you want to take any final movements on the back here before we move into a different position, feel free. Maybe you want to re-extend the legs up, open them up. Maybe pressing the feet on the wall and lifting up through the hips. Anything that would feel good here. And then as you feel ready, we'll just start to roll over to one side of the body. Press ourselves up and we'll meet in a seated position. Now we're going to continue to work with the hips. And what I'd like is first notice when you sit either cross-legged or with legs extended, if you're able to kind of tilt the pelvis forward to ground down through the sits bones and sit up nice and tall. Don't worry if you're not. If you find that you kind of have to lean back or round out, then I'd like you to bring in a little padding, a little cushion for the booty. So, maybe a bigger blanket unfolded or, a medium blanket. So maybe just, an inch or two of cushion just to bring a little lift. And this is just going to create more space in the hips and in the low back so that we can work a little more with the hips. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking cow face and moving that into fire log. So how we're going to do this with, sitting on your little cushion here, just getting that little lift in the booty with the legs extended. I'll mirror you. So we'll start to draw the right knee in towards the chest. And then if it feels okay, cross it over the left leg. So you might already be feeling some sensation in that outer right hip. I definitely am. So if that feels like enough sensation for you and you're able to still ground down through the sits bones, feel free to stay here. If you do want to maybe take it a little bit further, if you're looking for a little more sensation, you can start to bend that left foot, bringing it in, and then walking the right foot over. So with cow face, what's most important is to keep the hip bones squared on the ground, those sits bones. So if in bending that knee, you have to raise up and you're kind of sitting off kilter, then re-extend through that knee. If you are able to kind of connect down to those sits bones, then take that, and maybe you need to bring in just a little bit more cushion. So maybe, you fold the blanket up a little bit more so that then you're able to get that solid grounding down towards the sits bones. Now you can work to bring the knees stacked, but that's not necessary. That's not, a part of the pose. That's just kind of a little bit of something, a way to kind of just describe a direction to head, but that's not the final destination. That's not the point of this pose. What we're really looking for is that grounding down of the sits bones. And then with the legs crossed like this, feeling into that sensation in the outer hips and the outer glutes. So don't worry if the knees are not stacked. Mine aren't, and that's a-okay. Many of us, just aren't that flexible. And yoga is still accessible to us. So this can be uncomfortable. So it's okay if you need to adjust and kind of, wiggle your way into a position where, again, those sits bones are squared, the hips are squared. You can sit up nice and tall, and then the legs are crossed in whatever fashion feels best. And then I want us to try to find some stillness here. If this is enough sensation for you, definitely just stay here, breathe through this. If you'd like to bring a little love in for the neck, if you can maintain that nice tall spine, you can even lean up against the wall. If you are set up near a wall, you can definitely take that. That just dawned on me that that's another option. So if you'd like to bring in a little neck stretching, inhale to find that length up through the crown of the head, and exhale, just drop the right ear over towards the right shoulder, opening up through the left side of the neck. Again, I'm mirroring you, So our heads will be tilted to the same side. Try not to wiggle too much, to adjust too much. Of course, listen to the body. And if you find that you've gone too deep, if you find that you need to, just bring in a little ease back into the body, feel free to take that. But I want us to try to get into a position where there's a lot of sensation. It might feel uncomfortable. And then I want us to find stillness in that uncomfortableness. Beautiful work. If you're working with the neck, when you're ready on an exhale, just start to drop the chin down towards the chest, letting the head come towards center, letting it hang nice and heavy. The shoulders drop away from the ears, but we're still lengthening down towards the sits bones and lengthening up through the spine. So we have this nice tall spine, just letting the chin drop down, getting a little stretch in the back of the neck, maybe into the upper shoulders, the delts. Finding your breath and allowing yourself to be uncomfortable, but not allowing yourself to be in pain. Fantastic. When you're ready, we'll inhale to raise the head back up towards neutral if you're taking the neck stretch. Nice work. Take one more, another deep inhale here. And on the exhale, if you'd like, drop the left ear to the left shoulder, opening up through the right side of the neck. I'm feeling some soreness there. Continue to breathe. Stay present to the sensations. Check in with the knees. This could be a lot of pressure on that, well, on both the knees, but especially that left leg may be a little extreme bend. So if you need to straighten it, go with that. Breathing in that space you're creating in the neck, if you're taking that option. Breathing into the sensations in the outer hips. Maybe you're feeling it in the quads, in the glutes, maybe in the low back. Awesome work. When you're ready, inhale, raise the head back up towards neutral. Awesome work. Now from here, we're gonna slide the legs into a fire log pose. So it's a crisscross pose, but the knees and ankles are stacked. So we're gonna slide the right knee so that the right ankle is on top of the left knee. And you can kind of reposition. You're working to get, knees and ankles stacked. But as you can see, I got a lot of space here. So I'm gonna bring in a block just to fill in that space, to give a little support there. Some people that have more open hips, a little more flexibility, they may not need that. But since I am a stiff bod, I've got lots of tightness in my hips and shoulders, that's where I like to bring in my trusty little block here. So keep the toes flexed back so that we're nice and active in the knees. And you can kind of play with the placement. You can see that my ankle is not directly on my knee because that doesn't feel awesome for me. Maybe it does for you. And how you're posed, it's gonna look different because we all have different lengths of our shin bones, our femurs are gonna be different lengths. We've got different things going on in the body. So don't feel like yours has to look exactly like mine or like the crazy if you've ever seen this one on Instagram, you know, a lot of people that that are posting pictures on Instagram of yoga, they are hypermobile. They are genetically inclined to be more flexible. So theirs is going to look very different than this. So don't have any judgment of yourself. Don't really be guided by shape or what you think this is supposed to look like. Really tune into the sensations, even the uncomfortable ones, because this one's really uncomfortable. There's a lot of sensation for me in the hips and the glutes. I won't be here for too much longer. This one, this combination can be a little intense on the knees, so I don't want to keep us here too long, but allow yourself to breathe. Closing the eyes can help, but don't let your mind wander. Stay present, stay in the uncomfortableness. Awesome work. When you're ready, if you've got any props supporting you, go ahead and move those out of the way. And then you can use your hands to uncross through the legs. Take your time, no rush here. Might feel good to extend out through the legs, maybe shake them out. You could lean back on the hands, bending the knees, planting the feet, and taking some windshield wipers. Ooh, yeah, that one feels good. Or any other movements, counter stretches, anything that the legs are feeling right now. Just sometimes just shaking it out can feel good. You could even lie back on the back and extend the legs up. If that felt good. And how we started. Awesome. Now when you feel ready, we'll take that on the other side. So again, I've got a little cushion underneath me to bring a little lift in the booty, just to help create a little more space in the hips as we are working with some uncomfortable hip openers. So as you feel ready for the next side, we'll start to draw the left knee in towards the chest. And then if it feels okay, we'll step it over the right leg. And you could totally stay here. I'm getting sensation here. This could be your pose. This is still a good one. If you do want to work a little more with cow face pose, you can start to bend the right foot, bend the right knee, bringing it over towards the left, and then kind of working that left foot over towards the right. And we're, again, really focused on getting the hip bones squared. So notice if there's any difference on one side versus the other. We do have a tendency to be tighter in our dominant side, but that can be different. That's not the golden rule for everyone, but we do tend to be more tight in one side versus the other. So just pay attention. If in this you feel like you're still having to lift up through the booty, you can fill in that space with a thicker blanket, maybe even getting up onto a bolster or a cushion. We want to fill in that space so that we can get those sits bones grounded to have that nice squaring through the hips. So again, you can work. I really don't like the cue of stacking the knees, because that isn't safe in my body, and I don't think it's a safe cue for a lot of people's bodies. So, you can kind of work towards that, but again, that's not the goal. Not what we're trying to do here. Just really stay in tune with the sensations in the hips. You can close the eyes, sitting up nice and tall. Want to find a little bit of stillness here. If you would like to bring in A little more releasing for the neck. And we'll inhale to lengthen out through the crown of the head. And exhale, we'll just take the gaze over the left shoulder. Inhale back through center. And exhale, take the gaze over the left shoulder. Or excuse me, right shoulder. Inhale back through center. So taking slow movements side to side. And you're welcome to pause if you find, really good stretch that you want to feel into. Bringing a little love, awareness to the neck. Everything that allows us to see, allows us to do. This is another common area where we store tension and tenderness. We tend to store our stress on our shoulders. We tend to, carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. There's a reason that is a saying. So there might be some uncomfortableness here as we work the two major areas where we store a lot of stuff, where we can load up our crap. So stay present to that. And stay aware of the knees. There is a lot of sensation here, and it's okay to be uncomfortable. In fact, that is what I am encouraging you to do, is to find the uncomfortableness. I mean, you don't probably have to look very far in this pose, but to allow yourself to be in that uncomfortableness as long as it's not causing any pain. We're not choosing suffering. We're choosing to be uncomfortable and mindfully navigate through it. Fantastic work. Let's take about 3 more rounds of breath here. Awesome work. So when you feel ready, we're going to start to slide the legs into fire log, or double pigeon is another name for this. So you can take your time. We're going to start to bring that left heel on top of the right, or left ankle on top of the right knee. And looking to bring the left knee over the ankle, probably hovering for most of us. If you're hypermobile, then you may have the ankles and knees exactly stacked. So I'm going to bring in my trusty block again to fill in that space here so that I'm not freaking out my hips too much. A lot of sensation here. Feel free to make adjustments again so that the sits bones are grounded. That is the most important alignment cue here, is to really ground down through the sits bones so the hips are nice and squared. We're flexing the toes back, both on both feet, both toes, all the toes on both feet, so that we're keeping a little activity, a little softness in the knees. And again, you can kind of play with the position. I've got really bony ankles, so it doesn't feel good to have it right on top of the knee. So I kind of bring it back into a little bit more of the fleshy part, where I've got a little more muscle and fat going on in the leg, just for a little, cushion there, a little support. So feel into it, kind of adjust as needed, but then try to find some stillness in it, which can be a little challenging to settle into uncomfortableness. But that is the challenge for today, to help us navigate those uncomfortable times that life creates, which oftentimes either are facilitated by change or create change. We have all gone through a lot of changing this year. Last year, it's all one big crazy year, right? It feels like it's still 2020. At least the energy, the vibes. We've had a lot of, even just in 2021, a lot of changes, a lot of shifts, globally, nationally, locally. So uncomfortableness is a sign of change, whether it's happening or to come. And it's important for us to learn to navigate those, to not just run away or to try to numb ourselves from them, to try to distract ourselves from the uncomfortableness. Not to talk crap on comfort zone. There's lots of good things that can happen in the comfort zone. You're nice and comfortable. But one thing that doesn't happen there is change, which we may not always want, but that is the one guarantee that we have. Well, other than death and taxes, but change is the one thing that we can always count on. The only constant in life. All right. So a few more rounds of breath here. Fantastic work. When you're ready, you're going to remove any props that you are using for support. Be gentle with yourself as you uncross, and you can use the hands to help the legs move. And then taking any movements here that would feel good, stretching out through the legs, shaking them out. You can take those windshield wipers side to side. You could lie back on the back and take the legs up towards the sky. Alrighty. Whew. My hips are feeling it. Those outer hips. Good stuff. Are we ready for the next uncomfortable pose? All right, so I'm going to get us into a supported hip opener and heart opener. So to do this, we're going to want to bring in a bolster if you've got it, or something about this length. So it could be a thicker blanket rolled up. It could be, another yoga mat rolled up. You could use, if you have a longer foam roller, just something that is going to be able to support the spine, the whole length of the spine. Doesn't have to lift very high, but what we're looking is to get a lift in the back of the heart so the shoulders can drop back and down, so we find this beautiful opening in the chest. So you're going to take whatever prop you've got going. It could be a stack of pillows. It could be a combination of props, whatever you can do to, get a 3 to 4 inch lift. And then notice, so we're gonna be lying down along it, which if you keep the booty on the ground, that's gonna create a lot of arch in the low back, a lot of back bending. If that feels awesome, sweet, stay with that. If it doesn't, then you can bring in cushions, pillows, anything to kind of lift the booty to minimize that or to completely neutralize. You could also, maybe you want to bring in another pillow or blanket or something to support the head and neck. And then I will encourage some sort of support for the knees as we come into our hip opener. So I'm going to use my block and my water bottle. I didn't grab a second book. All right, so what we're doing here, lying back along the spine, and you can have something there for to support the head, but we're just looking to support the whole length of the spine, drop the shoulders back and down. So that's the heart opener. Hip opener, like we did on the wall, we're going to bring the bottoms of the feet to touch and let the knees drop open. And then this is where my water bottle and my block are going to come in to support the knees. Now the shoulders dropping back and down, opening up through the chest, that's going to create kind of a natural external rotation of the hands. So you could exaggerate that by turning the palms up, maybe extending the arms out into a T or into goalposts. They could also be alongside the body. We've got the support underneath our knees so that as gravity works to open up through the knees, we're not taking it too far. We're not going so deep that, again, we're getting into that suffering, the pain area. We don't want that. Uncomfortable, we can handle. Pain and suffering, let's not choose that. Again, the hips can be an uncomfortable place to work with for reasons already explained. The heart can be an uncomfortable place to work with. Not always necessarily physically, our anatomical heart. Although this position might feel uncomfortable, especially if we're used to kind of hunching over, rolling in. That's a very common posture in our everyday lives as we're driving in our cars, on our phones, on our computers. All this kind of hunching over, the rolling in of the shoulders, the dropping and drooping of the head, the rounding of the upper back. So this may feel amazing for some of us, this counter stretch to all of that. Some of us also, just our natural position kind of rolls in an effort to protect our hearts. We may not even recognize that we do that, but a lot of people that have suffered abuse or other sort of traumas, we've all experienced heartache and loss and stuff that just hurts the heart. And some of us carry that in our posture, and so we kind of roll in to want to protect our heart. So this may feel uncomfortable on a more emotional or mental plane. This opening up of the heart might feel foreign to us, especially if we've been guarded for a really long time. When I was going through a particularly dark period of time where I had my heart knowingly shut off, I would avoid heart openers because I would cry immediately. So I had to have this protection, this stone wall around my heart, and it was so uncomfortable when that was challenged. So allow yourself to just open up to this hip opener, this heart opener. But again, if it starts to trigger trauma, or starts to take you into an unsafe place mentally or emotionally, I encourage you to back off, since I won't be there to help you navigate that heightened
emotional response, especially if, again, it's trigger for you. I don't want to send you into an emotional state that I can't help you work through. So there is some self-regulation, a little discernment to bring in here. But if it's just uncomfortableness, if it's just feeling vulnerable, allow yourself to be in this safe space, being held by the earth, held by your props. Allow yourself to be open to the experience of this pose, even if it's just the physical sensation. In every yoga practice, nothing is supposed to happen, and nothing is not supposed to happen. So it doesn't have to be this big, profound spiritual experience every time. While you do have those moments, or you can experience those moments on the mat, just being in the physical sensation, just taking this time to tune into the body, to show it some love, to move mindfully, to explore the energy in the body, the stagnant energy. All of it is very beneficial. It doesn't have to be anything profound. In fact, it's as simple as just being. We don't really have to do anything. It's all about being. Continue to breathe as we, hold this pose a little bit longer. There might be a natural release and opening in the hips. Your body may naturally and automatically sink into, which could be awesome, could feel great, could also potentially take you too far. So stay in tune. Those last 5 or so rounds of breath. Notice if you can relax in the face, the jaw, around the eyes, the tongue, the neck, the shoulders. You are so welcome to stay here for as long as you'd like. This is our last pose. We will take Shavasana, which is our final relaxation, our final surrender. And if this is feeling good for you here, feel free to stay here. If you'd like to continue and finish your practice here. If there are any other movements or stretches that you would like to take to round out your practice before you wrap up in your Shavasana, then take as much time as you'd like to explore those. And then if there is a different position that you would like to get yourself into for Shavasana, then please, please take that. Traditional Shavasana is done lying, or traditional corpse pose is done lying flat on the back, palms turned up, toes turned out. That may not feel awesome today or ever. So you can use props to support you in any way. You can have the knees bent. You can slide your cushion or bolster underneath the knees if that feels good. But if lying on the back altogether doesn't feel great for you today, don't do it. You can lie on the side, you could lie on your belly, and curl up in a fetal position, wrap up in a blanket. But the idea is to get yourself into a position where you don't have to hold anything. Nothing is holding you. Well, the ground is holding you. The props are holding you. So where you don't have to hold anything, where you can fully surrender, where you can release the body, release the breath, release the mind. And hopefully here, we can find some comfort. Of course, depending on what came up for you throughout your practice, there may still be some uncomfortableness to deal with, and that's a good thing. Some of the emotions that arise may feel uncomfortable, and that just means that they're there to work through. As you settle into your final pose, try to allow yourself to relax, to release, to notice any holding patterns. Notice if you tense up through the jaw, if you tense up through the hands, if you're fidgety in the feet. We'll be here in silence for about a minute, allowing your awareness to turn inward, allowing this time for yourself to just be. Just this one moment in time. For you to just be with you. To just be a human being.
you do have more time to dedicate to your Shavasana, I encourage you to do so. Take as much time as you would like, as you can give yourself to stay in this state of surrender, the state of being. If you would like to end your practice with me, gently start to bring a little movement back into the body. Nice and slow, nice and gentle. Eventually rising up to a comfortable seated position. Wherever you find yourself, just offer yourself a little bit of gratitude for carving out this time, for your willingness to step on the mat and to be in the uncomfortableness of our practice. If you'd like, I'll invite you to bring the hands to heart center or take any other meaningful gesture with the hands. Thank you so much for allowing me into your homes to share this gift of yoga. I hope that you found something useful within it, if nothing else, just to relax and release. Thank you so much. I see you. I honor you.